Spurs 3-game win streak is over.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey guys, this is Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. It's morphin' time.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs whatever Kings 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And yeah, as you just heard, the Spurs 3-game win streak is officially done. Losing to the Blazers last night in San Antonio, 128-112. Now, there are some good news and there's some bad news. Obviously, the L. We're going to be looking at general thoughts, general takeaways. Then we're going to take a deeper dive into the box score and then talk about the newest member of the Spurs, Stanley Johnson, who is helping me do this today. He is back, everybody. Regular recapping these games. Rudy Campos will sweep the league. Rudy, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. And hey, it was fun while it lasted, didn't it?
Yeah, I remember I picked the Spurs to win. I just figured it was one of those trap games for the Blazers. I mean, they're playing so well that, they overlook a team like the San Antonio Spurs, and I just figured the Spurs would come out to win. For a while in the third, it looks pretty good, but the Blazers way too much.
Yeah, the Spurs at least made it interesting. They didn't get smashed, out of the gates. They were competitive for the most part, but the Blazers are just too much. Hey, make sure to follow Rudy on Twitter at Sweep the League, and he'll talk about his show, Sweep the League, in just a few minutes. So, Rudy, 3-game win streak is over. The Spurs fall to 9-19 on the season. They'll next go to Mexico City to play the Miami Heat. But let's look at last night's game, and right off the bat, the Blazers' big three, it was just too much for the Spurs. Dame Lillard, Simons, and Nurkic. The Spurs don't have those kind of players to counteract that Blazers' big three, Rudy.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're talking about Dame Lillard, probably one of the best players, one of the best pure shooters in the league. I mean, scoring overwise, Dame Lillard's just that guy. Simmons has really stepped up his game over the past few years, and that's something that Portland fans as well as NBA analysts out there are noticing. He's really, really stepped up his game. But when you've got a guy like Nurkic as well for the Blazers and you don't have Jakob Poeltl, it really hurts, and it really shows, especially in a game like this. You couldn't be able to control Nurkic, but overall, the big three for the Blazers was just way too much tonight.
Yeah, you may even say, maybe the big four, including Jeremy Grant. He had himself a game for the Blazers. But, again, as we said earlier, the Spurs were at least competitive for at least 80% of the game. They're still showing that they cannot play a full 48 minutes of basketball. They ran out of gas. It was just a couple of games ago where Popovich was like 30 or 38 minutes because that seems to be like the maximum the Spurs team can play before something goes wrong. We saw that again last night versus the Blazers. Now, credit the Spurs. They were down big. I think, nearly like 20 points to the Blazers. And they charged back to make it 6 points. And I think, if we're looking at kind of a silver lining in that is that they showed at least a little bit of competitive spirit to chop away at that lead, Rudy.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you want to see. You want to definitely see them play a full 48 minutes, but at least stay close in some of these games, especially against the teams that are probably the better teams in the league, Blazers being one of them. You just want to make sure that they continue to stay in the game. I mean, it's going to be a rough season, as we've always said from day one, but staying in the game is very important, builds confidence for these guys. But like I said, I really do the Spurs probably get very close to a victory if Jakob does play this game.
Yeah, and I think that was a big piece because you had Dame Lillard, just waltzing to the rim a few times. You had Nurkic just being a menace in the paint for the Spurs, whether it be passing out from the paint or just doing damage in the paint. Even Drew Eubanks was making an impact for the Blazers in the paint as well. And earlier, I said the largest lead for the Blazers was 20. No, it actually was a 19-point lead for Portland. But the Spurs did chip away that. Even though the Spurs, made it close in the third, because the third, that's when these got injured. They scoring the Blazers 32-24. The Blazers just couldn't miss. I mean, they just could not miss. We'll get into a deeper dive in the numbers in just a few seconds. but 60.5% field goal shooting for the Blazers. That was on the night, Rudy.
Yeah. When you're shooting well over 60%, well, I mean, at this point, it's 60.5%, you're going to win a lot of the games. In fact, majority of the games, especially when you're the Portland Trailblazers, where you have a lot of shooters, especially like I said with Dame Lillard shooting 45% from three-point range, 18 three-pointers made. It's a tough night for anybody if you're going to go against competition like that.
Ahead of the game, once again, you have Devin Vassell coming off the bench. He was not of the starting unit. Is this something that is going to stick moving forward, or you still think this is just temporary, considering he's relatively coming off, recently, an injury?
I did say I agreed with Pop. I love that he's bringing Devin off the bench, giving that second unit, some more confidence, a little bit of motivation. But let's be real, Devin Vassell's not Manu Ginobili. He's not going to bring that kind of spark off the bench. I think eventually he's going to be back into the starting five. But as of right now, with him coming off the bench, I do like the production he's getting, but I do starting to see, like, after this game, he probably does need to be in the starting five to get, to get into a rhythm a lot quicker. Manu was the one guy that could get into a rhythm just right off the bench, where Devin really isn't.
Yeah, circling back to that factor that the Spurs can't play 4 quarters of basketball. You could just see it. The Blazers won 3 out of the 4 quarters. That's not going to cut it for this young Spurs team. They got to almost play perfectly minute for minute, second for second in any game, even if it's a dweller seller like the Rockets or your Thunder. They got to play right. They got to cross their T's. They got to dot their I's. And that's exactly where the Spurs are. They can't afford mess ups, unlike the Blazers, who maybe can take their foot off the gas pedal, as you saw in the third against San Antonio, because they have those power players. The Spurs don't have that. I was going to ask you too, Rudy, what did you think about Pop inserting Bassie into the starting lineup? I get it. It was just a matter of bodies, but would you rather see Gorgie Jang start? Or maybe just go small ball with Sohan or even Roby? What do you think of Bassie getting the nod?
Bassie getting the nod was kind of a surprise, but not a complete shocker for me. I've been on Bassie a little bit. I understand the hype and I understand people getting really excited for Charles Bassie, but he's more of a guy that plays really well with another big right next to him. So a guy like Jakob Poeltl, we kind of saw tonight. I mean, you have him starting at center position. He had 6 points, 5 boards in 20 minutes. It's not a great stat line, especially a guy who's supposed to be a lot more versatile than Jakob Poeltl. I just feel like it was not a really good move to have him in starting five, but yet at the same time, it's giving him the opportunity to start, see what he can do against another starting big man like Nurkic. But more than anything, like I said, Bassie needs to be at that power forward, that 4 position, alongside of a big guy, because that will open up his game a whole lot more.
What do you think about this? Poeltl and Bassie starting together. Is that a good 1-2 punch for the Spurs?
The moment they signed Charles Bassie, myself and Derek Gervin agreed completely on that. It should be Poeltl and Bassie starting side by side in that front court. What that does is that allows Poeltl to control the lane, but it also gives the Spurs Bassie is a really good jump shooter. So he can knock down the outside shot. So that gives him that kind of stretch 4 that they've been looking for. And it allows Bassie to be a lot more free roaming than having to protect the rim.
There you have it. Once again, the Spurs lose to the Blazers last night out in San Antonio, 128-112. Spurs record 9-19. 3-game win streak is over. And once again, they'll next face the Heat in Mexico City. When we get back, we're going to look at the box score, what stood out for Rudy, what didn't stand out for him, and vice versa with me. All that and more in this episode of Locked On Spurs. But before we do that, look, we all know how ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online, right? Well, here's something you may not know. You can also use ExpressVPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. Maybe you run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. This will change your world. ExpressVPN allows you to binge, for example, The Office on UK Netflix. It's so simple to do. Just sign into your Netflix, fire up the ExpressVPN app, change your location to the UK, refresh Netflix, and that is all. ExpressVPN lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from almost 100 different countries. Just imagine all the Netflix libraries you can go through. Love Korean dramas? Use ExpressVPN. South Korean Netflix? They got it too with your ExpressVPN subscription plus your Netflix subscription. But it's not just Netflix. ExpressVPN works with any streaming service, BBC, iPlayer, YouTube, Hulu, you name it. Hundreds of VPNs out there, but the reason I use ExpressVPN to watch shows is because it's ridiculously fast. There's never any buffering or lag, and you can stream in HD, no problem. ExpressVPN also works on all your devices, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more, so you can watch what you want on the big screen or on the go. So if you want to get access to hundreds of new shows, go to expressvpn.com/lockedon right now. You can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/lockedon. expressvpn.com/locked to learn more. And I also want to bring to you a message from the NHTSA. Look, drive sober or get pulled over. You're hanging out with some friends, putting back a few drinks. Maybe those few become a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah. You live nearby. You can make it. It's no big deal. Yeah, you may not want to do that. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway, right? What's the worst that can happen, right? Well, your insurance can go up. You lose your license. You lose your job, total your car, or worse yet, kill someone. Everyone knows about the risk of driving drunk. The results are tragic, often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on the road to save lives. Once again, drive sober or get pulled over. Message from NHTSA. And we are back with Rudy Campos right here on Locked On Spurs, discussing last night's Spurs loss to Portland. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen today. Second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. So let's look at the box score, Rudy. And we kind of alluded to it in the first segment. Let's dive into it now. That Portland big three was just devastating for the Spurs. You have Dame Lillard, 37 points, 8 assists, 2 steals, 5 rebounds. It's too much. You notice Trey Jones was pressing him, full court practically, just trying to slow him down, whatever they can. Didn't work. Having Nurkic with 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He had a block. Simons, 23 points in the starting role, and then Jeremy Grant, 18. That's just too much for San Antonio, Rudy.
Yeah, and let's not forget, you've also had Josh Hart in there where his big number was 10 boards. I mean, for a guard to go in there and get 10 boards, it takes a lot. But, overall, the starting 5 for Portland was just way too much. I mean, really they only had, I believe it was Shaedon Sharpe who had double digits off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hot shooting night for the Portland Trailblazers. Over 60%, just over 60% from the field, 45% from three-point range. They basically tied the Spurs 40 rebounds for total.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they pretty much beat the Spurs on every category for Portland. But, with the Spurs, you always ask me what was that bright side. It was the offensive rebounds, man. They doubled up Portland on that, 14 to 5. So
good call.
I really like the activity. Now, Bassey had, I believe, 3 offensive boards. I mean, it just seemed like the starting 5 for the Spurs was on the offensive boards, and that's a really good sign. But at the same time, it's just not enough. You got to win more than one statistical category to beat a team like Portland.
Yeah, and look, Keldon Johnson led the team with 25 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists in 33 minutes. Shot the ball pretty well, 10 for 16 from the field, and made a 3-point shot. So he was doing all he can to keep this team in it. You even had off the bench Devin Vassell, 13 points in 26 minutes. But, again, that talent, sometimes that talent on the opposite end of the court is just going to overwhelm the Spurs. You saw that last night for Portland. I look up and down the stat sheet and I go, okay, well, what's the bright spot? Well, you talked about the offensive rebounding, which is good. But then I start looking at the little things. Okay, what are the little things the Spurs could have done? Well, I mean, obviously it is win the game, but make your free throws. 57% shooting from the charity stripe, 11 for 19. Those are the things I'm talking about, Rudy. Those little things the Spurs can't afford, especially in this era of a rebuild, Rudy.
Yeah, free throws are so big. I mean, it's something that you've got to really work on. And you would think at the NBA level you'd have way better free throw shooting, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. Not only Spurs. I mean, a lot of teams struggle from the free throw line. But this is one of those games, Jeff, where it's kind of like we said in the past. You just toss your hands up and say, you know what, the better team won. If
Yeah.
Portland is shooting at a normal percentage, the game's a lot closer, I believe. I mean, you're making 18 threes compared to 11 threes. Portland chunked up 40 of them while San Antonio chunked up just 29. So again, you live and die by the three, and Portland was just making the three-pointer. They made 7 more than the Spurs. Think about it, 7 times 3 is 21. I mean, it's a way closer game if they miss a few of those there. So I think defensively wise, just closing out on the perimeter against a team like Portland and any other team that gets hot from the outside beyond 3-point range, you just got to play better defense, and that's pretty much what it came down to, is perimeter defense.
And I'm glad you're being, trying to get those bright spots out than me, because I'm struggling right now, because I look at, this stat thing jumps out at me. Points off turnovers, Portland with 23 off 11 Spurs turnovers. I mean, that transition defense, getting back on mistakes on defense, trying to slow them down, didn't work. And that cost the Spurs their win streak, part of it as well. And give the Spurs credit. No Zach Collins, no Pirtle. You're relying on a second-year pro just from the G League, Bassi and Gorgie Dang out there. They were able to contend with the Blazers in the paint, 56 points to tie them. You saw Trey Jones get in the paint for some baskets. Keldon Johnson, of course, was back to being that barreling bull in the lane. So the Spurs were not intimidated, despite not having bigs to keep them, give them some space to attack the rim. So that was good to see. When you look at this stat sheet, and I look at the third quarter, as you mentioned, that's where the Spurs made it interesting. Headed into the fourth, I really felt that the momentum was going to still swing the Spurs' way. But right out the gates, I think when Portland went on a 7-8-0 run, and that just pretty much knocked out San Antonio, Rudy.
Yeah, it was a gut shot when that fourth quarter started and we saw Portland make that little run. You kind of knew, as Spurs fans and everybody watching, that the game is pretty much going to be over. And it's kind of sad, because the whole common denominator that when you and I talk is always that one quarter. It's the fourth quarter. And they just can't seem to finish the game, whether they're close or, they try to make a run, but then they run out of gas. And that's what it just comes down to, is that fourth quarter seems to be the one quarter now that is just really affecting this team. Honestly, man, if you are a normal fan or a normal person just watching or just waking up in the morning and seeing the stat sheet, and you didn't even look at the score, you would have figured this game would have probably gone to overtime or been a 2 or 3 point game. The stats are so identical that it's just amazing me that they ended up losing by 16.
Yeah. I mean, they were competitive, and I think that was the best you can ask for from this young team going up against a Blazers team that was hot coming into the game. They had won 4 out of the last 5. They're getting some road wins. Dame Lillard's being Dame Lillard. They showed a graphic during the game that he's averaging nearly 30-something points a game in the last week. So he was on fire. And, of course, Spurs don't have that talent the way the Blazers do. You're depleted, no bigs, no Romeo Langford. I think Romeo Langford would have been a pest with Dame Lillard last night. I really think that would have happened. He would have really made him work more than what he had to last night. But all in all, Spurs lose 128-112 on to Mexico City to take on the Heat. When we get back, we're going to talk about the newest member of the Spur. Some roster moves were made in the last few days. We didn't get a chance to talk about it here on Locked On Spurs. We're about to do that with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. But before we do that, can we pause the Locked On Spurs for just a second? Okay, we're paused. Great. Because you got to try this. I'm talking about Built Bar's new reimagined flavors. Cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper, white chocolate peppermint granola, and it's Built's take on the granola bar, and it's so much more filling than you'll ever enjoy, and it's still insanely tasty. And they got the candy cane brownie puff. Built puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. First off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built bars before, well, you're literally missing out on the best tasting protein bars ever built. They're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it, with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and a shockingly low sugar and calories, 130 calories. That's it. Just sink your teeth into that first bite, and it'll change your life forever. I'm not kidding. There will be a time before you try these new built flavors, I should say. Yeah, you're going to love them. And I am going to give you them what you need to know right now to get yourself a box of them. But before I do that, look, I want you to get them right now before they're all unavailable. So you got to go to Built right now and you got to try that. Get 15% off your order right now by using code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. Once again, LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. We're back with Rudy Campos on Locked On Spurs, and we're going to get into some roster news now. Rudy, I thought the Spurs were done shuffling the deck, but apparently they're not. The Spurs recently announced that they have waived Stanley Johnson. He's going to go back to the Austin Spurs. And they brought on Stanley Johnson, another NBA vet, to add to the roster. What are your thoughts on this? No big deal. It is what it is. What do you know about Stanley Johnson?
Well, Stanley Johnson, let's not forget, drafted in 2015, first-round pick, 8th overall, makes him a lottery pick out of Arizona. I mean, when he was in college, he was one of the younger guys. He was a freshman in college, averaging 13 points a game, 6 rebounds a game. Really one of the more developing guys at the time in the draft, really had a bright future. Not going to lie, he came in playing for Detroit, averaged about 8 points his first year. His best year was 2017-18 season, where he started actually 50 games for the Pistons. Again, 8 points a game, average 3 boards. Kind of a journeyman, Jeff. I mean, he's going to do some of the little things right, but it's not a signing that should, get Commerce Street ready for any type of parade or anything. It's just another veteran guy. Stanley Johnson was great, but Stanley Johnson is just a little bit better than Stanley Johnson is. So basically what they did was they got the shampoo and traded Johnson for Johnson is what it came down to. But you're really just getting a little bit more. You're just getting a really more. You're just getting a really more athletic player than you had in Ali's. But I really wouldn't put a whole lot into it. Some talks have him possibly being as a trade piece, and that's the reason why they did sign him. So we'll see what happens with Stanley. But it is a guy that RC wanted back in the draft at one point. So we will see what happens.
I think he's a Brian Wright guy too. He was selected by Detroit, and that's when Brian Wright was with the Pistons. So
yes,
there's that as well. So there's a connection as well. Yeah, I know another NBA vet. If it's just going to be a trade piece, fine, so be it. But if he sticks on with the team longer than the trade deadline, another veteran to help this young team learn. Or Josh Richardson's really embraced that role. Jakob's embraced that role. To a certain extent, Keldon and Devin have but they're young too. So yeah, it'd help. To me, it just makes more sense for a trade chip. I mean, would you rather throw in Stanley Johnson? No offense to Stanley, good player, or Stanley Johnson, an NBA vet, proven commodity. So it just makes all the sense in the world. By the way, last night against the Blazers, the Spurs wore their statement edition jerseys again. What do you think about them? Those are the ones that are getting hated on big time ahead of the season. And the Spurs announced it. Are you feeling them now? I mean, were you on camp hate them?
I was on camp. I really didn't like them, but after seeing them on the court, players wearing them and they're playing in them, I'm actually coming around to them. I really like them. And I'm not going to just say it, for Spurs fandom all over, but I'm kind of excited about all the jerseys they have this year. I really like all of them.
Really?
When you come into the Classic, you come into the Statement. You've got the old All-Star All-Star ones that they were wearing. The jersey, the City Edition, I think is what it is. I'm liking them all actually. I can't say that I've said that in the past. Wasn't a big fan of the camouflage ones, but this year I really do like all the jerseys for some reason.
I'm going to assume the Classic Edition is the best one so far, in your opinion.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my Frank Burkowski jersey to come in. So,
I have not heard that name in a.
I can throw a lot more. More.
Okay, give me two more. Give me two more.
So, if I had to order two more besides Frank Burkowski, I would definitely go with the Uwe Blob and a Zarko Pasby.
I think you would get a lot of compliments with the Zarko one. I think people will come up to you at a game and they'll be like, okay, that's fire. That's fire. I think
Oh, yeah.
I think they'll be like that. Yeah. No, for me,
What about the
if I had to
Christian
do
belt?
yeah. Would you put Rasho Nesterovic in that category of getting attention, kind of like a salute if they saw you in a custom jersey like that?
Man, I think so. You know what? He's right there up with the Francisco Elson for me.
Oh my God, I forgot about Francisco Elson.
I mean, I honestly really wanted a Greg Sutton jersey when he was drafted.
Oh, you are going into your bag right now.
We need a whole Locked On. Yeah, we need a whole Locked On for Spurs jerseys that I would buy if I had the opportunity.
Okay, let me throw you two more names out and I'll let you go. Would you get a custom Spurs jersey of Dwayne Shintz's?
Yes, rest in peace, Dwayne Shintz's. I definitely would, because I was at the camp his rookie year, his Spurs camp, where he dunked the ball for us, and we were all excited.
Would you get one of Kawhi Leonard? Oh!
Ooh. I was a Kawhi fan when he was here. I was pissed off when he left. But you know what? Bygones are bygones. I would probably rock one. But I would definitely get a Nigel Knight jersey before the Kawhi Leonard.
Goodness. What about David Wingate?
David Wingate, yes. But Wingate has to come right after my Caldwell Jones.
But didn't Wingate have like some off the court problems?
Oh yeah.
He did, right? Yeah.
It starts with an R, so we're not going to say it on there. But yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I think everybody knows about this one, but what about Alvin Robertson?
Oh, 100%.
You would, even though you know about the off court issues.
Off court issues or anything like that. You know, Alvin Robertson is one of my all time favorite Spurs. I'm trying to order an Alvin Robertson classic jersey as we speak. So hopefully I can get one ordered.
And you know what, Rudy? I think if you were to go to a game, maybe you don't go as media, just go to enjoy the game, you know, with your family or whatever, just to have fun. Mm-hmm. I think people would see that jersey and be like, we get it. Like, we get it. Like, on the court, the dude was a wrecking machine.
Yes.
Have you, I'm pretty sure you have, but if you haven't, there's this old Sports Illustrated article with Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. And one of them did. So whether it be Jordan or Johnson, still a good compliment. Said that San Antonio Spurs Alvin Robertson was a player one of them feared. They said they didn't like playing against him. They feared him because of that defense. So, yeah, it's a shame that he'll never get his jersey retired. But it is what it is. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about the Spurs loss to the Blazers? You know, kind of expected, or did you really think the Spurs are going to pull out the W? What do you think about the newest member of the Spurs, Stanley Johnson? No big whoop, or do you think there is something afoot when it comes to trades? And tell us your obscure Spur that you would get a custom jersey made of. Is it Dwayne Shintz's? Is it an Alvin Robertson? Is it a David Wingate? Is it a Greg Sutton? Let us know. You can let Rudy know on Twitter at Sweep the League. And tell us about Sweep the League, Rudy.
Yeah, man, Sweep the League comes to you every single week. We release an episode either Monday or Wednesday. Football's coming up. We got playoffs coming up here in a few weeks. Spurs basketball is in full effect. I mean, we've got the bowl games coming up. So we're just talking everything. But don't miss the one coming up this coming week, because it's going to be drunk talk for all of us. And you do not want to miss that.
Wow. Well, there you go. Another reason to check out Sweep the League. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. The list goes on and on. Second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today podcasts available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. One more thing about Locked On Spurs, you can also get it on the Kens 5 Plus app. So there's no excuse for you to not tune in to hear what Rudy and the rest of the guests have to say on Locked On Spurs. So for Rudy Campos, or should I say Rudy Dwayne Shintz's Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.